ለመማር ወደ ትምህርት ተቋም መሄድ ግድ አይደለም።
ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
ራሳችሁን ከኮሮና ቫይረስ ወረርሽኝ እየጠበቃችሁ በቤታችሁ ወይም በተመቻችሁ ቦታ
በኢንተርኔት አማካኝነት በኦንላይን ትምህርታችሁን መከታተል ይቻላል።
ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና
ከእንግሊዙ ኢንስቲትዩት ኦፍ ኮመርሻል ማኔጅመንት ICM ጋር በመተባበር የሚሰጡ ትምህርቶችን ተከታትላችሁ በ6 ወር ጊዜ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተቀባይነት ያለውን የስልጠና ማስረጃ ባለቤት መሆን ይቻላል።
ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ ዕውቅና ባገኘንባቸው የፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን እና የሆስተስ ስልጠናም በምዝገባ ላይ ነን።
ጥያቄና መልስ፣ የክፍል ስራዎች ብሎም ፈተና መፈተን ክፍል ውስጥ እንዳላችሁ አይነት
ልምድ ባላቸው መምህራን እየተማራችሁ
በኦንላይን ባላችሁበት ቦታ።
አድራሻ ከ22 ማዞሪያ ወደ ሾላ ገበያ በሚወስደው መንገድ 150 ሜትር ገባ ብሎ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ
ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
I'm hoping we'll have the other guys joining in. Today I'd like us to have a really very short class if possible, because I'd like to hear your views about a very interesting topic, which is looking at a transitional economy from the point of view of a marketer. So far we are about 25 there. It means we have a team of nearly 10, 12 there who are not yet in class. And that's why I was asking that you request them to hurry up. I'm hoping my voice is clear out there. You are hearing me?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, doctor.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to hear that voice so that I'm sure I'm not talking to myself. So thank you for joining in. As I said, we'll have a shorter time today because we would like to discuss a very intricate topic, very interesting, with no straight answer. Because we'd like to see in our countries in the region, in East Africa, some countries or some economies which are still undergoing what we call transition. We find ourselves operating in an environment that sometimes we are not 100% sure as marketers, because there's sometimes a lot of regulations. Someone is saying he's not hearing me. Birhan? Try to exit and come back, because if everyone else is hearing me, then it looks like the issue is on your side alone. Okay, so ask Biran Demisi to exit and then come back. Maybe he didn't enter the system properly. Anyway, so again, this is a very cold day for us here in Eldoret. It has been raining almost the whole day, and the weather doesn't seem to be very comfortable today, but I hope we're going to finish the class nicely. So
surprisingly, it's the same with us, doctor. It's the same with us.
Nice. Then that's okay. Luckily today I didn't leave my house, so I'm just at home. I'm sorry, something happened. I don't know. I'm hoping that you guys are still there. I've been using my modem the whole day, so I'm hoping it's not overheating or something. Now, as I said before, the markets that we have in this region are interesting because they are in transition most of the time. I know, for example, in an economy like ours, we have had almost complete liberalization, and then we came back to some kind of controlled economy. So we are somewhere in between where we transition and then we came back at the same time. Now, today I'd like us to have a more open discussion, open consideration of the aspects that we would like to, because we would like to have this as one of those concluding topics. So then, if you allow me, I will say a few things about what transitional economy looks like. So anyway, let's apologize. Let's just quickly look at the topic for today. Somebody's telling me it's happening across networks in the whole country, but it's a bit unstable. I don't know why. So anyway, let's move in quickly before something also happens again. So just in a nutshell, we wanted to say that many economies in Africa, particularly the ones in the East, are undergoing some transition. Others are in different stages. Others are very advanced in the transition. Others are a bit lower in the transition. But a majority of them have what we call a mixed kind of transition, where they have a structured planned economy, while at the same time having some elements of some kind of restructuring, so that you have both elements fused into one. Just moving across, it's important for us to keep in our minds that any economic system, the one that you have in Ethiopia, the one we have in Kenya here, and the ones that we have across the world, the whole idea is for that economy to develop a kind of a network where a network of organization used to resolve certain questions for producers, that is suppliers, as well as for consumers. So here there are questions that we normally ask when you are looking at a market, and these are the what. Oops, you guys are in the waiting room. Let's admit them quickly. Okay, so there are questions that we wanted to say we need to ask, and that is the what, and the how much, the how, and for whom do we produce for. So once we have that kind of situation, those questions answered, then we kind of have an economy which is either planned, like, should we say controlled, then you have those which you allow the markets to organize themselves. In a situation where the markets are indeed allowed a free hand to organize production, to redistribute resources, to look at consumption from different points of view, so that the prices that are in the market are not assigned by government or an individual, but it's left out to the forces of supply and demand. So here, when we talk about a transition market or economy, we are having an economy in which we are having, on one hand, the control of government is being minimized or being reduced. Okay, so a free market is the one that allows resources to be allocated by the forces of demand and supply, in a situation where everything is driven by the motive of making profit. So every organization in the market would like to make some little bit of profit here and there. The competition there is so strong to the extent that if you don't do well, there's a likelihood that you'll collapse and there is no one to support you as a company. So in that case, then you have very limited, if any, role of the state. So the state will not play anything in the market. The private companies, individuals are allowed to create, not to fix prices, but rather to decide on what pricing level they would like to And of course, it depends on how the customer also would be willing to buy at that price. So in other words, a free market allows what we call control of the private sector, or should we say domination of the private sector. So to bring the point home, I have described the free market. And also we have the controlled market, where you have a very interesting situation where the state fixes everything. From the quantity of goods to be supplied in the market, the prices, who does the production, how is it allocated, all those questions are done by government. So we refer to that kind of market as controlled, or what we call centrally planned economy. Now, the transition economy then involves a situation where we have the centralized planning or planned economy moving towards a free economy. It is not yet there, but it is moving from that point where government was controlling to the situation where you want to have a free market. Okay. So then the transition economies are involved in a process of moving from centrally planned economies to either a mixed kind of economy where you have both characteristics of the free market on one hand, and you also have the characteristics of the free market on the other. I'm told you guys were not hearing me well. What about now? Just if there's anything, just let me know on the chat so that I can be able to adjust. So for example, Shimiles is telling me you can't hear me well, so I need to raise my voice or something. Okay, fine. I hope you can hear me. If not, please just write it down on the chat. It's okay. I will be able to see it in real time. Okay. So I've said that a transition economy is moving away from the centrally planned economy, the one that is controlled by government, to the one that you are having what we call a free economy. Allow me to switch off a machine which I had left it on. Just one moment. Sorry, okay. So you can proceed on, because that one was going to make a lot of noise. There are certain aspects that we normally consider when you want to look at an economy as to whether it is free or not. So the key aspects that we would like to take note, and I'm bringing up this so that when we reflect on our economy in Ethiopia, then we can see whether these characteristics are there or not. Number one is what we call liberalized markets. Okay. A liberal market is a market that, for the guys in economics who understand that very well, the other guys who, if you are new into this, is a situation where we have a market being allowed to allocate resources freely. So if it was from government controlled, the arms of the government in the market is removed. So producers produce when they want to produce and supply whatever they want to. The consumers buy what they want to, and of course, at the price that they decide to buy. Okay, so the forces of supply and demand somewhere meets, and the prices are set there. We also have, under that kind of a situation, another key aspect being privatization. So here you will notice, like I'm aware, one of the telecommunication services owned company, which is owned both by government, I think, and our private sector, is selling its shares to private hands. So privatization here means that there could be some state agencies which could be providing services to citizens, incorporated either as parastatals or what we call state agencies, now are required to sell or to be handed over to the private sector, either by sale or something. Okay. Another issue also that is key and which has some implication on the management of markets or marketing by corporations is a situation where government state agencies or state agencies. Many apologies again. Something happened. I was trying to ask my son to fix something for me. Okay. So as you said, there are issues of privatization, liberalization. There are issues to do with rationalization. And here we want to have the private sector mentality of HR functions in government agencies. Then, of course, we have a very important thing for us to take note of right now is the fact that we have a reduction of tariffs. That means some taxes are removed, some controls are, for example, import tariffs or stuff like that is removed or reduced so that we can have more participation of international companies. Or should we say in marketing, international competitors to bring in their goods at competitive prices. And also, there could be some legal reforms. I'm raising this particularly for the guys in banks. And we're saying that in a free market, we need to have a situation where the banking system is reformed and therefore the private sector can fix their own interest rates and stuff like that. Maybe at this time, it's good for me to mention that although most of the economy that we have in Kenya is open, but in the past few years, the banks were charging interest rates which were so exorbitant that the government came back and controlled. But the kind of control that they do is to set what we call a base lending rate. And then it's up to the banks to decide how far they want to move from there. Okay, for example, currently we have a 9.5% being base rate, yet banks are lending at approximately 12% to some of them 20% as interest. But depending on how you negotiate with your bank, they normally, it will be more individualized. But the standard in the market is a range between 10 and 12%. Now, that kind of situation, the key aspects that I raised brings in some very interesting thing, which is protection of private property. So that for the first time, we are not seeing the government playing a critical role in the market, but now the economy is placed in private hands. That way then, you find yourself in a situation that government has to legislate laws which protect private property. In transition economies, or during the process of transition itself, many issues arise. There are problems which may occur. One of them could be a rise of unemployment. So please take note because we'll want to ask ourselves a question later on regarding, let's admit some guys who are coming late. What just happened? Okay, sorry, I thought it disappeared again. Technology is very interesting. I didn't know one day that we could use this very comfortably. Okay, so rise in unemployment has an implication on marketers because few people will have resources to be able to buy some goods and services. Inflation may happen, and this one, of course, happens because suddenly the ceilings that the government had put, for example, in interest rate is removed. Then you find a situation where prices now begin fluctuating, and sometimes they can rise so sharply and so fast. Then recession may occur in the economy because of unemployment, because of inflation. There could be some trade deficits, the economists will understand there. And then commonly brain drain, because now the rising from unemployment guys will take off to work in other places. But it has some very good positives or the advantages. For example, we have efficient resource allocations within the market, which is very important. You also have competitive prices. So the prices there is a bit competitive. It's not arbitrary, basing it on the forces of supply and demand. Also, innovations will likely spur or spike. Reason being that there's a lot of competition, and you have to be that competition can drive innovation in the economy. There are issues to do with stimulation of investment, because now that people see advantages or profits in investing, so people begin putting their capital in enterprises, in industry, in businesses, amongst many others. But I want to say it also encourages what we call globalization. That is just a sneak preview to what that economy looks like. But what has this portend to marketers? That's the question that I think the person developing the curriculum looked at. So you have a situation where you are having an economy which is transitioning from one stage to the other, from a centrally controlled market by government into a slightly free economy. And then suddenly you find yourself in a seriously open economy. So what are these things that marketers should worry about? Okay, there are many. In fact, the underlying issue that we want to say is that transitioning in an economy, which we have since understood to be a process of moving from the level of central government controlling to a more liberal or open market, free market, if you will, allows external competition to come in, because we're saying that the market is liberal. We are saying that the market is globalized. So therefore, we expect multinationals to want to come in and buy, for example, owing to the ability to acquire financial resources easily, they can buy in the state-owned corporations which are being sold out. They will move in so quickly to take advantage of the openness or creation of that space in the market. So what does that bring into local farms? That's the question that we would wish to answer by the end of this course, of this class. So the question would be then that transitioning in economy creates both opportunities and challenges. Both opportunities and challenges. I'd like you to take note of those so that later on we bring them up. Because what are these challenges to a marketer that a transitional economy can create? On the other hand, the question would be, what are these opportunities that a transitional economy may create? Okay, those two. If you answer that today, it will be very nice. Okay, so we want to say that the moment you open up a market, you're opening a Pandora's box, if you will, where multinationals elsewhere would like to join in the party and acquire as much market share as possible. So they would, because of that transitioning, they would a space is created for them to expand into the economy. If, for example, let's pick in Ethiopia that today we say the banking sector is liberalized, then you will find international banks moving in so quickly to compete with the local banks, or the national banks, if you will. You will find banks like Standard Chartered Bank moving in, the likes of ABSA, the likes of, which other one, Barclays, if it is still there, amongst others. They would want to come in and compete with the local ones. So what does it portend if you are a marketer, say, in Ethiopian commercial Bank of Ethiopia? What happens? Similarly, what happens to a situation where we have allowed transitioning in our economy so that we have the telecommunication sector, the mobile phone service provider? Suddenly, you are allowed to mean it's liberalized, so they can be sold to private hands. And we have a situation also where international competitors, for example, Vodacom, can come in, and among other multinationals. So I want to say this, and clearly that the transition poses both challenges and opportunities. Okay. It also causes problems. This, I know this is not about marketing, but since we are looking at the Ethiopian economy, the East African economies, then transition of economies also creates challenges and opportunities as well for policymakers. So government officers, politicians, parliament, and stuff like that will be very worried about how policies are created so that you can have this transitioning of the economy happening in a manner that it can be managed. If you allow, for example, today and say that we want to just open the economy, what does it portend if we just allowed everyone to come in whenever and we want to do that? So then I want to say emphatically that the challenges that goes to the consumer market, because suddenly we are having our kind of thinking in national companies or firms, in local firms, we need to begin thinking or having an orientation towards a situation where you are now competing with the multinationals all over the world. But it does not stop there, because when you open up an economy, it also allows you in that firm or that company in Addis to be able then to compete with companies, say, in Nairobi or in Kampala or in Khartoum. Because now we have allowed the opening of the economy, it means therefore that new entrants will come in, but also as a local firm, you are able to go out there and compete. Okay. So again, the orientation changes completely. So then, what are the strategies that enterprises, that firms, that companies can develop, or tactics that they can formulate to be able to fit in the context of transition? So if you looked at our marketing strategies, the marketing mix, does it become different when you have, or we find ourselves in an economy which is open? Let's pick, for example, the case of national aviation, Natnael, and imagine that national aviation suddenly can be able to move into openly without any restrictions to anywhere in Africa, anywhere in the world, including China, including India, including the Americas, all over. What does it imply for you? Okay. What about if you now allowed other companies to come in and compete with national aviation, say from the East Africa region alone, or even from South Africa, North Africa, all over the place, competing with national aviation within Ethiopia? Okay. So that's the question that we want to ask ourselves. Okay. Then we also want to ask other special things about how can local farms establish themselves elsewhere? I think that is what I addressed. So that we are saying we are moving from a more controlled economy to a freer, more open economy. Those are the issues. Okay. So I would like to open up this discussion. We had requested you guys to have a look at that. So I would like to listen in to the teams that we had requested you to decide things to discuss. So I don't know how you have organized yourselves. I think we have a bit of a good number today. Can we listen in for 5 minutes each to the teams that we created to discuss this open topic? What I was saying is that in the last class, I requested that we today spend a little time to discuss how a transitional economy like the one we have in Ethiopia or any other could, I mean, what are these strategies which are different from, you see, the marketing we have been discussing all along assumes that the market is free, is open. But if we find ourselves in a situation where we are transitioning, would there be difference? Would there be a difference?
Could you repeat the question, Doctor, again? Could you repeat the question, please?
Well, you didn't understand me that time. Yes, just ask.
Doctor?
Mohammed? Yes.
Yeah. Could you repeat the question? Your question, Doctor.
Okay. Today's class was more of a discussion, if you remember. We had said we'll spend about 40 minutes or so to only discuss say, can I call it marketing in an Ethiopian context. Because Ethiopia, just like other economies in East Africa, are in a transition, moving from a centrally controlled economy to a more free economy. As a marketer, what can you do which is different from looking at marketing from a point of view of a liberal economy? Because the whole course we've been assuming that we are operating in an environment which is competitive. But now, what is the context then of marketing in Ethiopia? If you looked at what we've been discussing from the first day. So what I'm trying to say is I would like to open up the discussion for say 10 or so minutes, and then we can see whether we can stop for today, actually for the class. So it's like I'm opening the class up for discussion on marketing, particularly in a more in a transition economy, number one, or secondly, in the Ethiopian context.
Okay, Doctor, can I say something?
Yes, Natnael.
Yeah, okay. Just, we have tried to discuss in our group somehow,
Yes.
just, I can raise some points, especially the advantage and the disadvantage of this transition economy, especially
Yes.
The intervention of the government. And I just,
Yes.
I can say some of this. So in the first place, there are the existence of price control really in Ethiopia. This is really bad for the marketers. The second one is also the government institution managing and controlling commodity market. And the third one, issue related with interest rate control of the market also. That are, the big disadvantage. This one also leads to us to unemployment, and the economy will be at the recession stage. This is really the disadvantage of Ethiopian economy, to transit to the economy also. So,
Yes.
but there are also opportunities if the government, especially, out from this situation. Maybe there are opportunities like in the free market economy, maybe minimize unemployment. The market will be maybe at the booming stage, increasing also the market share. But we can see, carefully for the consumer markets. But now in the near future, I think, the Ethiopian government now trying to in the process to be a member of WTO. So at that time, maybe, we are, free, with the world, maybe, we can go in, we can go out, and everybody come to us. As you mentioned, in the case of airline, especially now, the Yamasakuru declaration also saying, it was in 2017. Already now almost 21 countries already signed this agreement. So open African market. So the Ethiopian, marketers or the Ethiopian companies should be ready for such kind of WTO or this Yamasakuru declaration in the case of aviation also. So people are also in the banking area also. They should be ready for the coming forces, especially from outside, because they are so strong. So if we enter into WTO, so everything is free. So we should be, ready for that. Otherwise, we will be, swallowed by the foreigners. Thank you.
That is very true. Thank you very much.
Can I come in, Doctor? Mohammed.
Mohammed, yes.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. We have also discussed the issue of the transition in our team, in our group.
Yes.
With the opportunities and evil that the transition economy brings to our country, the situation seems that is inevitable. The global scenario, the global scenario, especially the World Bank and the IMF, are like hitting a nail with a hammer to open broad much. So we don't have any choice but to open a market more and more. Since now, even the current working investment proclamation for any foreigner to come to Ethiopia, there are to invest in Ethiopia, there are conditions, and there are of course privileges, and there are areas limited to the local investment, and there are also areas which foreign investors are allowed to come to work with a minimum capital requirement for a foreigner, 200,000 USD.
400,000
USD, yeah. Currently, for a foreigner to invest in Ethiopia, he has to invest at least a minimum of 200,000 USD. Minimum, of course. And there are some kind of like a lower price for engineering and consultancy areas from this, and the joint work with the local investors, the price is more lower. So till now, Ethiopian market has been closed for many of the foreign investments because of the limitation, because of the protection to the local investments and local traders. Now it seems that the local traders protection is like more losing, and the government is forced to open the door much to accept the foreigners. So with this scenario, there's a little advantage and more disadvantage I see, because the Ethiopian market and the industries and the trade itself is not as such developed. As we have discussed before, the management system in institutions, I mean in like industries, is the worst. Is the worst in a stage. Only some handful companies owned by government can compete and change themselves to compete with the foreign companies, like the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, the and Ethiopian Airlines and Ethio Telecom. They can manage this change, but many of the private sectors owned by individuals is so tough to compete and to survive, and it will, with the privatization, there will be unemployment, because an individual owner of a company may not need to go with a lot of employees, and since the goal is profit, there might be in many sectors cost increase. So this may be like we can see as disadvantage for the local community, but from the marketing perspective, we have to see more wide, more vision. We may have a new products. Even we don't have McDonald's in Ethiopia, so we may have a new products. So we may have a new vision.
You're mentioning something about McDonald's in Ethiopia, and
yeah, we don't have McDonald's, we don't have Starbucks.
Yes,
these companies are.
We also don't have them here in Nairobi, even in Kenya.
Oh,
but,
really?
not that they did not come, they did, but unfortunately, I think I don't know whether Kenyans are nutrition sensitive or something, but somehow people
maybe the consumption, maybe the consumption reason, doctor.
Yes, so
they
closed and left. Yes.
we may not eat too much, or we don't spend on food too much.
Yes.
And anyway, these companies are not easy. They can shut easily many of the companies on the streets. Their marketing is so sophisticated, and their capital is huge. So the local industries should be aware of this situation and should be ready to accept, to embrace the new situation. So as marketer, we have, of course, to endorse the foreign industries, the foreign investors, and work with them in cooperation, and so we have to vision, even as a professional, we have to vision a more wider perspective that we can work with the foreign investments. But for the majority of the local population, it might be a disaster, Doctor. From the perspective of unemployment, from the costs increase, from the protections that will be losing by the government. So such things are to be focused, I think. Thank you, Doctor.
very much. Okay.
በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ MBA በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ MBA በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ MBA በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ MBA በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ MSc በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
I have two guys who have raised up their hands. We'll start from eshetu and then we'll go to Getachew. Eshetu, please.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
Welcome.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes, hello.
Okay. Following the country's change in the economic ideology from a mixed or common economy to a market-based economy, and the subsequent adopted of the World Bank Structure Adjustment Program in 1990s, a number of government-owned enterprises have been privatized, and another major reforms during this time, different state-owned enterprise or companies just privatized to the private and create job opportunity for the young, the youth. And also, this is make efficient resource allocations among those company become competent to the global market. And there is innovators, entrepreneurs just get an opportunity to lead those companies, and innovative ideas just create. The other thing is stimulating investment. The Ethiopian government just make free for everyone just to establish their companies. This make the investors or the foreigners just invest in our country. There is free market, but a little interventions on government hand on the side of commodity like sugars, wheat. There is a little interventions. The price is settled by the government. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Eshetu. Those are very interesting comments. I'm just imagining if in the East African economy, we had opened our economics to the extent that we are like Europe. You can imagine a situation where from Ethiopia you drive in and go to Nairobi, go to Kampala, do your thing without anyone asking you questions about what you are carrying, what you are selling. It becomes very interesting. That's what Europeans have been able to take advantage of. Before I allow Getachew to disappear, as we allow him to come in and share, I find ourselves in the region very funny. Okay, allow me to use that word, very funny, because Kenya would sell something to Europe, a product, and then Ethiopia would go to Europe and buy the same thing and bring to Ethiopia, or the other way around. You find somebody in, say, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, going to London to buy something that was actually designed and made in Ethiopia. if you looked at our own market in East Africa, we have a potential of having about 300 million strong market, but we still don't see that. Interestingly, I don't know what's going on. Getachew?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes. There's something you wanted to say. You address up your hand, and then we'll go to Bekele, and then Tesfakiros.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes.
Hello. So
yes, proceed.
Just to add on my colleagues' issues, especially the Ethiopian economy is still in the transition economy. I have different view, with a large public sector still governing in big economic sectors. But as my friend said, the government of Ethiopia is in the process of privatizing many of the previously state-owned enterprises, which are operationally inefficient, but still under privatizing the state-owned enterprises in Ethiopia. But still the big section of public-owned economies are still under the state, including the telecommunications, the banking and the insurance, the aviation industry, the marine, and many big enterprises are under the state still. So that's why I'm saying that it's mixed. But it's also very evident that these enterprises many of them are operationally inefficient. How they use resource, the technology utilization, and so on and so on. But Ethiopia also has concern to privatize all of its public-owned enterprises like the aviation industry, because we are above 100 million population, but it's still landlocked. We have security issues. We don't have port. So privatizing the aviation and the marine enterprises may cost us a lot. So it is under the public debate, even though the government and other intellectuals are debating on it. Look, the Ethiopian Airlines is still 100% state-owned, 100%, but very efficient operationally, and it's not bad to own such companies, even though it is state-owned, because it is the icon of Ethiopian. It's flying over African skies for more than 80 years before independence. So, privatizing this company is a lot for Ethiopians. So it's public debate for Ethiopian citizens. To privatize all industries, it is good to do cost-benefit analysis at macro level. For example, Ethiopia is with big population unemployed, and we have many portion of youth. So if you privatize enterprises, they may come with very good and sophisticated technologies, which may not create employment for the youth as expected because of sophistication in technology. It might be capital intensive than labor intensive, but we need labor intensive technologies if privatized. So we have many concerns on that, but Ethiopia is still in a mixed economy. Some of this aspect is transformed in the process, I mean. So we have many issues. It is not clear in our case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we allow Bekele to come in, it is true that we are in a mixed kind of economy. I am not doubting that the Ethiopian Airlines is one of the best. In fact, earlier, it flies into my small town, which is deep in the western part of Kenya, every twice per week. And of course, that's more of cargo. It comes in, we happen to be in a rich agricultural area. So it comes in to pick commodities, particularly horticultural produce to take to Europe. So I am not doubting that sometimes it's important to think about your pride. At the same time, look at other issues, like you say, the cost-benefit analysis at a macro level. That's very interesting. And there is no doubt that some state-owned agencies or companies are doing so well in the market. So thank you. Let's listen in to Bekele, and then we'll come to Tesfakiros.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes.
The issue of transitional economy, that like one of the Ethiopian context, yes. There's the issue of privatization is still under process. The government since the 90s has started to privatize it, most of the government-owned companies. But for now, when we are transiting from centralized planned economy to free market, as marketers, we have to consider, we will face many challenges and opportunities as you explained. What we have to focus, in my view, is we will not be out of the international market, so we have to join them, the international market. But we have to be protective of our consumers. We have to focus on local markets, especially where we should consider the distribution channels we have been using, like when we have been using the planned centralized government distribution systems, how can we change these systems to the new coming private entrepreneurs of the locals? So we have to focus on those issues. Secondly, we will not be efficient enough to compete with the foreign multinationals. So we have to look the less developed countries, similar markets. Like if we have to focus African market than the European markets. Of course, we need the currency, but for sake of competition, we have to focus, change our views and select those less developed markets. So our view have to be changed. The other thing, we have to consider cooperations, just partnerships with these multinationals. In that way, the local enterprises, those enterprises which we are building can survive and also protect their local market. So I think as marketers, we have to focus on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, the name Bekele is very popular in my town because this is one of our very serious competitors when it comes to athletics. So when you come to town, you just share and use that name, everybody will know you. Finally,
Doctor,
yes.
my name is Sentayo. Bekele is my father's name. Ethiopians use the first name.
Oh, the first name.
Yeah, that's my name. Bekele is my father's name.
Okay. I like that. I'm just sharing that Bekele is a popular name in my town. So your father is popular now when you come to Eldoret here, where athletics is everything. Okay, let's listen to Tesfakiros, please.
Very much. I was taking into consideration, of course, along with my colleagues, I was taking into consideration the opportunities and the challenges marketers could face in the market while we take into consideration a free market rather than the locally centrally planned marketers. Of course, when we come to our country, we can say that almost more than 90% of activities are locally. or a centrally planned economy. Even we have we were discussed about the Ethiopian Airlines, even the banks. There is no even the level of liberalization of the commercial bank is even within the country. Therefore, it is narrow enough to talk about its liberalization. Even it's liberalized with the country, but it needs to be liberalized throughout the global, at least throughout Africa. Then it is narrow enough. Secondly, privatization is just starting now after the political reform of our country in 2017 and 18. Therefore, it's still, we can say it's command kind of economy. But when we come to the national-wise or the opportunities and the challenges of the free market, in the first place, there are opportunities which could be brought into existence, which are the kind of reduction in bureaucracies of doing activities as competition is high enough. Bureaucracies will be reduced to the minimum level. Therefore, the other point regarding this one is standardization will product standardization of services, standardization of everything will come into place. Following this one, motivation of employees will be increased because being an international standard employee or being an international standard talented guy have a meaning. Even in our country, when bankers could be able to work or think they are standard to the national, to the world level, they will be motivated enough, even in the case of the profit, the salary and other kind of benefits. The other one is customer-driven choices will be taken into consideration or will become existent because customer is the most important focus of every kind of business. Therefore, customers will be taken into consideration, taking the world-class standards. When we come to the challenges, there are too many challenges because following the world-class attitude, we will have audiences will be or the customers will be international. Therefore, we need to be competent enough to take advantage of any kind of customer or to take every audience to attract every audience. Second, top talent is needed so that we will incur too much kind of finance or investments in upgrading our employees. There enough resources are needed or required. Resources must be required. So therefore, we are competing within the world. Taking these challenges, we mean people-based marketing techniques will be taken into consideration. People, at the end of the day, the people or the human system is the brand of the product, the brand of the organization, the brand of whatever it is. Therefore, the people-based marketing techniques will be taken into consideration. As already I have said it in the first place, the liberalization and privatization in our country. Still, the economy, our economic reform is infant enough, to my say. There are political transitions. Following that political transition, there we have policies, economic policies, which are wrote in materials, but when we come to into practice, they are not existent enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kiros, for that, I think we are agreeing that because I'm seeing, I think the answers are all down now. Is anyone who wants to say something? I believe more or less, yes, I think all answers are gone now. Sentayehu, you want to say something? I think you forgot to raise, you put your hand down, I believe. Okay, we want to say this today. We just wanted to spend a shorter time in our discussion. We wanted to say, eshetu, just a moment before I allow you, that a transition economy, as we described it, is very important to marketers because it creates two scenarios. It creates a lot of opportunities for your company, but at the same time, it raises a lot of challenges. Competition is the biggest of the challenges. Opportunities are also many because suddenly you have an opportunity to participate in a larger economy freely without government control. However, I would like us to, there's something Tesfakiros raised about some economies being protected. I want to ask you a question now because it's also relevant for us here in Kenya, that if today I produced something that I want to sell in Europe, let's pick a country like the UK, for example. The conditions that I must meet before I can sell a commodity in Europe can be so many. Yet, somebody from the UK can easily sell a commodity in our country without being given any conditions. Why is the UK doing such things? It's doing that because it wants to protect its own producers. Okay? And of course, taking advantage of the weak negotiating position that African countries find themselves in because of historical injustices and things like this. I know, and this is also a gray area, we call it an ambivalent situation. Should we liberalize or not? If we were to open up our markets for everyone in the world to come and sell, the Chinese, for example, have invaded our countries, our economies with so many products. They are almost like the ones dominating in the construction industry. I believe it is similar. It is worse in Zimbabwe, and I think in not Zambia. There's a country down south where the Chinese are doing everything. In Kenya, of course, there's a serious problem also, but not as much. Maybe the construction of large infrastructure, you will find a lot of Chinese. So the question is then, to what extent should we liberalize? Because by liberalizing and allowing the Chinese, the Americans, the Europeans, the Indians to sell their products in Africa, it means we are transferring employment from our continent to those countries. And that is what I believe one guy, eshetu, I think, brought up that issue and talked about we have issues to do with unemployment. So why is that unemployment? It's because we buy Chinese products. So we are employing the Chinese to do their stuff, just to give that example. So the issues that we have discussed today are very interesting and pertinent to a marketer. Because as a marketer now, if you find yourself in a situation where we are transitioning, we are not yet in the free market, but we are somewhere in between. And the situation is not so adaptive in the sense that we are not yet having the muscle to go into other markets. But at the same time, you will find foreign-owned companies, multinationals coming in. So how then do you operate in a case like that? Okay. So, Kuri, you wanted to say something? Kuri?
No, doctor. No, doctor.
Please go ahead. I saw you unmuted your microphone. Okay, no problem. So in a nutshell, I think we have had a very interesting discussion today to the extent that when I look at the economies in Africa, it is quickly reflecting on what is happening in Africa vis-a-vis what is happening in Europe. I would like to see in future, in fact, the nearest future, a situation where somebody can move in from Addis to Nairobi, establish businesses without questions, just paying for licenses and permits and moving on. I would like to see a similar situation where somebody from a small town like mine here in Eldoret, the coldest part of this country, moving into some town somewhere also in Oromia and establishing businesses, going to the north of Ethiopia without question. But maybe that situation can happen only if we have developed our infrastructure, the roads network, the aviation, Natnael should be developed in such a way that it's so easy to move both people and their goods. Okay, so that is the situation that I would like to see our economies in Africa to be, because looking at the resources that God bless this continent with, there is no reason why we should be depending on anyone. I would like to pick, for example, the mind of somebody like the president of Rwanda when he said that we do not need to go and ask for anything from anybody, because here in Africa we have everything. What we need is the mind, like the ones in this class that I'm seeing, which can be able to provoke our politicians and convert Africa into one massive market for products and services. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about 7 o'clock. I promised a 1 hour class. I don't know why we're still here. But if there are no comments, I would like to say a few things as we wind up the discussion. One is that I would like to ask every individual to make sure that you have sent me your individual assignment. Please. I would want, I know I've just received one as we are talking, and it seems I was given a list today by the college, and I'm still seeing some people whose assignments I do not have yet. So kindly make sure that you send me that. Secondly, we've done 2 assignments. So I'd like you to spend your weekend just to do a summary of what we discussed today in 1 page only. Don't go more than 1 page. Just look at marketing in a transition economy. Just try to summarize in 1 single page, and then you send me to my email by Monday. I know you have classes and you have many other things, but just a page will be okay for me. And then lastly,
sorry, doctor, we do this individually? We do this individually?
It would be nice. Just summarize the discussion and send me.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Mohammed. If you allow me, and I want to say this has been a very great opportunity working with you in this course. I've had very interesting things I've learned from you, individually, separately. Those guys will sometimes chat on the side. Makes my life easier, makes it very interesting, makes me feel African, makes me feel East African, that we can work and think in a very innovative way, in a very interesting way. So if you allow me, I would really want to express my deepest appreciation and gratitude to everyone who has been in the class. There could have been no class without you guys, can I assure you. And I want to express a lot of respect for you, for your commitment and your diligence, your hard work. You have my contacts. Whenever you have something you want to share with me, just feel very free. Because again, in the spirit of Africanism, somebody talked about something we call African tenacity. The African from all the continents are strong people who can do so much together. So thank you so much.
Doctor, before you leave, can you tell us something about visa? A little.
The what?
About the exam, nature of the exam. We will have final exam, yeah?
Yes, we'll have a final exam. I think the college will give you. Since you've asked, I'd forgotten completely. There is I've set an exam. It will be the things that you've done so far in your assignment as usually 60%. So we have the final exam giving us the remaining 40%. The exam will cover only the contents that we have discussed. Normally for my case, for my situation, so that we can have an opportunity for all of us to think and probably practice a little bit. I have a habit of setting a small case of a page or less than a page for you to just have a look. But the things that are being requested for comment would be coming strictly from the case. I mean, strictly from the marketing management discussion, nothing outside of that. I have sent to your class president, I believe, almost all presentation except two, which I hope I'm going to send you immediately. The exam, because this is an MBA and we have to keep the standard. Last time I gave a team of your colleagues a slightly longer exam, so this time I've reduced it a little bit so that we can conform with the standards of the college and of course of the country, Ethiopia. So don't worry about the exam. Unless you don't prepare completely, I have not had anyone who fails in our paper. We should be confident, don't worry, just prepare, it will be fine, Mohammed.
Thank you, Doctor, just for our knowledge.
Yeah, thank you so much. You can use the PowerPoints to prepare, but of course, you remember a textbook that I sent to you guys, it is good, even if you know some things, not for the exam alone, but for your future, it's also good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. In
Thank
Swahili,
so
we say
much.
shukran.
We also say shukran in
Thank
Arabic.
you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was my
Shukran.
pleasure working with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, kiddies.